Comparing Dutch Banking App Architectures.
It's a mouthful.
Thanks, Eddie.
Thanks. Already an applause. Cool. So it's pronounced Verbruggen, but yeah, just Eddie would be fine, or Verpluggen. That's what I heard TJ say at PhoneGap Day US is fine by me as well. So today, actually, I prepared a 4-hour talk, and I have 15 minutes, so I have to be a Formula One racing driver to get through this. But us Dutchies are pretty good at Formula One these days, so I think I'll make it. So I've been working with a few banks in the Netherlands in the past few years, and I've also seen other banks trying to do stuff, so I wanted to just look at them, talk you through what they did, also extract a few tips if you want to do it yourself. So here we go. There's 3 banks, and I'm going to score them on a few metrics. I've worked with Triodos Bank for 11 years. And it's a relatively small bank worldwide, but it's officially a medium-sized bank in the Netherlands. And they currently have an app with a 3-star rating in the store. There's also Rabobank. I didn't work there, but I'm a customer, and I've seen them doing stuff with Cordova. It's 50 times as large as Triodos, also 50 times-ish as much app users. These are guesstimates, by the way, those app users. I'm not sure, but it's somewhere in that ballpark. They currently have a 2-star rating. And there's also ING, which is a bit bigger than Rabobank, and they have a 4-star rating. So let's zoom in on Triodos Bank first. Back in, I guess, 2012, they said we want responsive internet banking. And they gave us one sprint or so to pull it off. So just change the CSS a bit, right? And we said, okay, all these other banks have these nice PIN logons and a great performance. Why don't we do a mobile app? So we convinced them with a prototype, and they said, okay, that's very cool, actually. Let's go for it. But the problem really was that this ICT department of Triodos was about 18 developers, and they all knew Java, and that's it. Obviously, also for internet banking, they knew a bit about HTML. So we looked at Cordova, and in the end, we pulled it off in 3 months' time, including everything, security, performance, whatnot. We launched on iOS and Android. And 2 years later-ish, also Windows Universal was added because Microsoft sponsored it a bit. And pity here is that since then, Triodos thinks it's done developing the app, because that's when I left a year ago. And since then, there have only been a few bug fix releases. So I want to shout out to Triodos to say, come on, man, step up your game and add some features, listen to your customers, and your ratings will go up again. So Rabobank, it's a pretty large bank in the Netherlands. They used to have a native app. It wasn't that fancy, but it got the job done. And it had, I guess, a 3-star rating most of the time. But they really wanted to be able to share code between web and native, and also share their internet banking solution. And they also had a mobile internet banking solution, so they wanted to go back to one code base, really. So for mobile, they used Cordova as a wrapper, and as far as I'm concerned, they cut too many corners doing it. And from what I've been hearing or feeling, they're on a good track, but they just rushed it, and they forgot to make it a bit nicer than it currently is. But what I'm hearing is they're working on it. So I looked at their IPA, I unzipped it on my Mac, and I opened up the index.html. And to my surprise, I saw just a Cordova starter template here. So okay, what's going on? So I also opened the config XML, and there you have it. It's loading a remote source just to even load the first page. And well, that's not bad per se, but you're making it hard on yourself when you're doing that. Stuff like this will happen. So this is an alert you get. These are actual screenshots I created myself in the app. This is an alert when you cancel some flow, and you'll see https://banking.rabobank.nl. So that's a web alert, but you might as well create a native alert here because you're using Cordova, right? And if you long press some link, you get this action sheet. I love action sheets, but this one is not on purpose. And this as well, at the top left you see the menu. I tapped it a bit too long, and then the text selection thingy popped up. So yeah, there's room for polishing. And ING, I'm currently working with ING. They're the largest bank in the Netherlands, I think. They have this great native app, and they're the best app in 2015. And well, they're really proud of it. But yeah, as always, the business wants more and they want it faster. And they have a ton of use cases they want added to the app. But it's, well, especially in the Amsterdam area where ING is, there's a lot of competition from companies like Uber and whatnot, and other banks as well. So it's hard to find good skilled native developers. But they have a few hundred web developers. They all know Angular and stuff like that. So they were thinking last year, what about adding a web view, perhaps? Let's explore it. So they had a few questions like, what about security and performance? And what about the consistent look and feel, of course? So I'll get back to that. But first look at, quickly again, these three architectures. Well, there's not really much to see, but there's a few differences, and those are interesting. So Triodos has the HTML, CSS, JavaScript package with the app, and they're just calling into a backend server which has a REST API. And this means that if you load the mobile banking pages on your phone or you use the app, the payload of what you're sending to the server is about 50 to 100 times as small because you're only sending JSON. So that makes it perform pretty nicely, of course. So the difference with Rabobank really is, like I said, they're storing that on the server and they're doing gets and posts to get the data. So on a slow connection, it will be bad. I must say that they are changing it a bit. So the logon screen is now native. So they're trying different things. But this is what they started out with. And ING has this native app, and we've embedded this blue thing, the web view, in the native app, but the header is still native. And here we package the HTML as well with the app. So this is the same as Triodos, they have a backend server with the REST API. And we go to that server through the native layer they already had. So the web view isn't doing any XHR. It's sending it through the native layer, which does certificate pinning and everything. So we added a plugin to be able to tap into that. And yeah, I quite like this approach. One of the nicer things about it is that you can now pick and choose yourself what use cases you want to implement in web and what you want to do with native. So you will never going to transfer money with the web view because they already have this great native screen that works perfectly fine. But there's stuff like opening accounts and perhaps chat or the use case we've implemented, I'll show you in a bit, which will work perfectly fine with web. So I really like this approach, and I really do. And to give you an example of something that we did a short proof of concept, and it took us actually 2 days to pull this off. Where we have this native screen, you press the plus button, and this screen will pop up. So this is a web view overlaying the native view, and this entire screen is a web view. So we've created a transparent web view in this case, and this flip thing is just a CSS transition that's happening. And we didn't really polish the text, etc., but because it was a bit of a proof of concept. And this is native again, this pin sheet and this loader as well. So we're really tightly integrating with the native bits here. So my preference is really, now I've seen this work and you have the budget and you already have a native app, it works pretty well to embed Cordova in it. And I'd like to give you a few tips if you want to do it yourself as well. So to have a consistent look and feel, it's probably hard to tell which one is the native one in this case, but the native one is on the left. It's the tour when you first start the app. And on the right is feedback. That's the use case we implemented. And we're reusing fonts here. They have their own font. So on web, we bundle the web fonts, the TTFs. But on native, they already have a font bundled with the app, so we're just tapping into that. So for iOS, for instance, there's something in the P list with the name of the font, and you only have to reference that font in your CSS, and you can immediately use it. And we found that it also helps loading performance of the app. If you would load a separate TTF again, then it would be slower than just reuse the thing that's already loaded natively. So, second tip. Translation. This app is multi-language, and that language, you can switch that in the native app. So the native app knows which language you want to use, so the web needs to know that as well. So on the left, what we first try is, me being me, use a plugin to get the native language, but it's asynchronous, right? And the screen has already been loaded, so these labels aren't translated when the screen is being shown. So what we did was, on the right, is this moving on the right? No, not really, okay. So what we did is just pass the language as a parameter to the web view, so when you load the content, you already know the language immediately, and then you don't have this label flashy thingy. One thing I was, this gave me a hard time, bootstrap time, because in a native app, you have a splash screen, and on a full Cordova app, you have a splash screen, and that's hiding all the stuff that's going on, like loading JavaScript libraries, etc. But when you're embedding a web view in a native app, then you don't have that luxury of the splash screen, so you need to cater for that. But on iOS, it's fine. It's like in the hundreds of milliseconds to load the web view. But on Android, specifically older devices, it can take 2 seconds to warm everything up. So it really helps to minimize your JavaScript and CSS. But it depends a bit on your stack. If you do vanilla JavaScript, then your web view will probably load very fast. If you're using something like Angular, that will really slow Bootstrap down. I must say, minify helps, so never ship the non-minified version. And you can even minify Cordova.js. That also saved us a bit of time. Very small gain, but still. But if it's possible, you can also preload the web content instead of doing it when the use case is loaded. And it depends a bit on do these other guys maintaining the app, do they allow you to do that? Because if you preload something, it may crash the app while you're preloading. You want to avoid that. So perhaps you can do it right off the bat, but perhaps later when people trust the solution a bit more. So if it's not allowed, use a spinner. And here's an example of, this is iOS. You need to look closely because it's a very short time to load. And this is Android, where you have a bit more time to see the spinner. And these spinners are, of course, a native view, and they are being hidden when the web view settles. And there's an event you can tap into to say, okay, you can now hide the spinner. So, talk to native from web. Here's a few examples where we did that. So, to this plugin, we added a feature to update the navigation bar, because the thing at the top is a native view. So this title at the top is also native, and also that menu icon is native. So when you're switching routes in your app, you also need to update the native label again. So that's what this is doing. And there's also on the last page of this flow, there's this big button hiding the web view. So then you go back to native again, and that's also something we added to the web view. It's really a one-liner in both native code bases, but it's just to make it even nicer integrated, right? So this is a very important one. Go out of your way to onboard the native developers that are also there, because since these guys have been doing a native app they're very proud of for years, they're of course a bit protective to what is being added to the app. And then if you're going to embed a web view, any other guys can also add content to the app, and they obviously want to be in control of what is added. So you really need to work with them, not in a separate room or something like that. So explain a lot. Also be humble when you're in the Netherlands. In America you can probably just trash the place, but you can't do that over here, unless you're a rock star, a real one. Oh, sorry, that was too fast. But yeah, be honest about limitations, like what Tim talked about, the keyboard and also the bootstrap time. And what I really experienced was that they will really help you, they think with you, and if they also can find a solution, they will accept it as well. So okay, we'll see. Let's go live with this, and we push the boundaries, and perhaps in the future we have some better solution. But okay, this is it. So also, like this guy is doing, walk everybody through the code, and pair programming also helps a lot. So they start owning the code base. And yeah, last thing really, give lots of demos. And we did, for example, this flip thing we showed in a demo, and people really liked it. So I asked them if I could take a picture while they were celebrating us, and I asked permission to show you here. So this is what they look like. Really happy. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Eddie. That was great. We have a couple minutes if you want to take a question or two.
Okay.
Should I walk through the crowd with this mic? Any questions?
Find the number of, oh dear, it's off, okay. Find the number of Cordova bots, I wanted to say, but
Oh.
there were 8, spoiler. Sorry.
Oh, we have one right here. Oh, PPK is coming.
Hi, Eddie.
Hi.
So how do you do the integration of the Cordova parts in the, for example, the ING app? Is a feature being built in the Cordova app and then being added by the native developers, or do you have a possibility to add links in the menu, for example? Or
Yeah, good question. We're actually exploring that because this first feature that's live for Android, and it will be live for iOS probably next week. So we're exploring how to onboard other teams to be able to contribute. But the goal is for other teams to be able to create their own module, and there's this awesome build system they have, which in the end packages a web folder. And this, for the native developers, it should only be upgrading a certain tagged version of this web folder. And we're providing those web teams with a tool to be able to test it integrated inside the native app. But yeah, something like a PhoneGap developer app really, but more a corporate thing then. So.
Well, one more question, if anyone has one. I think we're good for now then. Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you,
Okey-doke.
Eddie.
Thank you very much.